Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So in yesterday's video, I introduced how to use sessions in Flask, or at least one type of session in Flask. In today's video, I want to make a slightly more realistic example on how to use sessions, because in the example that I had in yesterday's video, I just set up 3 routes that handled the session in different ways. So the index would set the session, get session would read it if it exists, and drop session would end the session. So in this video, I want to make a login form and a page that is protected by the session. So if the user is not logged in, they won't be able to view this page. If they are logged in, then they can view it. So to start, let me quickly build the pages that need to be handled, or that need to be shown when they want to view them. So I have these 2 pages, index.html and protected.html, that have no body yet, but I'll do that now. So for protected, I'll just say something like, welcome to the protected page. And that's it. And then for the index, I want to say something like, please log in, and then I'll create a login form. So form, the action is going to be on itself, so I won't specify that, and I'll demonstrate it in a second. So it's going to have a username field and a password field. And then it will have a submit button. Okay, so I have my form. So let me just view the form quickly. And I forgot I need to return the template. So let me import the render template function. And then render template index.html, and it's already in my templates folder in my Flask directory. Alright, so I have this login form here. So what I want to do with that login form is when they click submit, it sends them to the login process to check if the password is correct. So let me hit submit now. And yeah, it sends them back to the index. That's exactly what I want. So to handle this, I will need another import. I need the request imported. So index will work in 2 ways. For a GET request, it will just show the login form, and for a POST request, it will process the login to determine if the password is correct. So let me add the methods on here. So at route methods are going to be get and post, and then here I'll say if the request dot method is equal to get. Actually, I want post first. I think it would be a little more clear. If it's post, I'll continue to set the session to be whatever the input is. So request, form, and then username. I believe I named it username and not user. Yes, username. And then if it's not a post, then it's a get, because it can only be one of the 2, and it returns the render template. So in the case of the post method, it's going to set the session, but I want to set the session only if the password is correct. So typically you have some kind of database set up, and you'd probably have hashing going on. So you would take their password that they inputted, you get the password from the database of the user that you were interested in, and then you'd hash the password that they passed in, and you compare the hash password that they passed in to the hash password in the database. If they're the same, then you know it's the user because they have the correct password. And if it's not the same, then they either aren't the right user or they just entered an incorrect password. But I don't have a database set up for this one, so I'm simply going to check and see if their password is equal to password. That's probably the easiest password to remember. So if request.form, so I'm looking for the password that they pass in. The password is equal to password, then I'll set the session. If not, then I'll simply return the login form again. So I'll say return well, actually I don't need to return it there because it's going to get down here. So if the password is that, then I want to return redirect, which I'll have to import up here as well. Redirect, return redirect, and then URL for protected. Protected I have not built yet. So let me just explain how this works. If they are just requesting a GET request on the page, so they type into the browser the address of the site, which is just localhost for this example, then this if statement won't be executed because it's not a post request, it's a GET request. So it returns the template. If it is a post request, it will check and see if their password is equal to password. If it is, then it sets the session to be user, and then it redirects them to the protected page, and then it drops out of this function. If the password is incorrect, then it skips this part, and it comes down here to line 14, and it renders template again. And I see there's one thing I should do. I should drop the session anytime they try to log in. So the very first thing I'll do is session.pop user and none. Okay. So I have the index set up. So now let me set up the protected page. So app protected. Okay. So with this protected page, I'm simply returning the protected template, but this isn't quite right because I want this page to be password protected. So how can I do that? I need to make sure that the user has an active session before they're allowed to see this page. And the way I'm going to do that in this example, and just know that this isn't the only way, it's the way that I'm going to do it in this example, is if I always check the session before I actually run any requests. So if you watch my other video on the requests decorators, then you know about the before requests decorator. So I have before request here, and I'll have a function called before request. So this is just something that's going to be executed before they even get into these other view functions. So if they were to call the index, it will go into before request first. Then once before request is done, it will go to whatever was called. So in this case, the index. So before request, I'll have this code. So I want to have a global variable representing the session. So I need to import one more thing, G. So G in Flask is just an object that exists all throughout a single request. In a typical single threaded environment, this wouldn't matter too much because one thread is responding to all the requests from a single user. But imagine you had a very large website with hundreds of thousands of people visiting. Every time someone requested something from your site, they may not get the same thread returning the response. So there needs to be a way to track a single person across different threads on a server. And in Flask, you do this using the G. So this G will be available across all the various threads that the user happens to be connecting to during their time on the site. And if that's too confusing, just know that it's almost like a global variable. It's almost even more global than your typical global variable. So I have G, and I'll name it user. I'll set it to none. And then if the session exists, so if user is in session, then I'll set guser equal to session user. And now I have this guser available, so I'll always know when the session is active. So in here, protected, I'll say if guser, so if guser exists, then I'll return the protected page. If it doesn't exist, I'll just redirect them back to the login page, which happens to be the index. And should be index there. So I wrote a lot of code without actually running it, so I'm pretty sure there's going to be an error somewhere. But this is the general idea. And I'm not touching the other functions that I created in the last video. So let's see, it's expecting an indented block on line 26. So this is just my text editor being finicky. So let me run that again. Okay, so it's working. So let me try loading the page. And let me call the existing drop session, or what is it called? Yes, drop session. Let me call that first to get rid of the session. And then let me go back to the login page. So it's still creating the session, so let me see if I have it in there. So now I always make it a goal with myself, see how far I can code before compiling and get no errors. But in this case, it didn't quite work out that way. So I'm just trying to find where I set the session, and it shouldn't be set. So when I call the index, it shouldn't set the session. So let me try this. Anthony, and then I won't put in the right password. I'll put Anthony again, and it redirects me to the home page. Let me put the post method on my form. Okay, so I can't see the username and password in the URL string. It defaults to get. All right, so Anthony, and then Anthony is the password, and it redirects me back to the home page. If I do password, it should send me to protected. And I forgot to import the URL for, so that was the other thing. So let me run this again. So Anthony, password, it says welcome to the protected page. And since my session is active, I get to see the protected page. If I clear out this session and I do this again, it redirects me to the login page because the session is no longer active. Oh yeah, and the reason why the session was there before because I didn't clear it from the previous instance. But yeah, if I do a bad password, so that's not the right password, there's no session created down here. But if I put in the correct password, it takes me to the welcome to the protected page, and we see the session is here at the bottom. So that was just a really simple example on how to use a login page to set a session. Like I said before, there are many different ways of handling sessions in Flask. It depends on what you're doing for your app, and just remember you can always change it. So this might be a good way to start off when things are relatively simple in your app, but as things get more complicated, you may want a different session management system, and you can always refactor your code to do that. So that's it for this video. If you have any questions, just let me know down in the comments below. I'll add this code to GitHub so you can get the code if you would like to look at it. And if you like this video, please like this video. Hit the like button down below. If you like my channel, please subscribe. And I'll see you tomorrow. I'll make another video tomorrow. Oh, if you have any requests, just let me know in the comments and I'll try to make a video based off what you requested. So Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.